Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the NewsX Eurozone. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. Russian forces claim capturing Vasivkivka and hitting Ukrainian infrastructure, while Ukraine says it struck a Russian defense plant in Shebrotsaki. Both sides continue offensives as fighting intensifies across multiple regions amid ongoing conflict escalation. Russia will close Poland's last consulate in Irkutsk on December 30th after Warsaw shut the final Russian consulate in Poland, citing alleged sabotage. Moscow calls Poland's move hostile and warns of further reciprocal actions. British Finance Minister Rachel Reeves announces more than $34 billion in tax rises. This on top of the £40 billion she raised last year. As a result, a large hit to growth of living standards is expected. Romania will buy over $726 million in French Mistral air defense systems, though a joint European Union procurement deal. Now, the purchase includes 231 launchers and 934 missiles, plus training and logistics. The move follows repeated drone incursions near the Ukrainian border. A massive fire has erupted in a Hong Kong complex apartment. So far, the fire has claimed at least 44 lives and has left nearly 300 missing. The Hong Kong police have arrested 3 construction company officials. 2 National Guard soldiers shot and critically wounded near the White House in what US is calling a targeted attack. The suspect in the shooting has been identified as Rahman Nalla, who is reportedly an Afghan national. Following the DC shooting, US President Donald Trump says his administration would re-examine all Afghans who entered the United States during Biden's term. Trump also denounces the shooting as a terror attack and an act of evil. Amid the escalating rift between China and Japan, US President Donald Trump urges Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi to avoid further escalation as per reports. This comes as US aims to keep trade truce with China. Russian forces say they have captured Vasivkivka in eastern Ukraine and carried out strikes on Ukrainian energy and transport infrastructure. Now, the Russian Defense Ministry reports precision attacks on 143 locations, including ammunition plants, over the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, Ukraine says its forces attacked a Russian plant in Shepkovsary that produces missile and drone components. Both sides continue to launch offensive operations as the conflict intensifies in multiple regions. All right, and let's welcome Major General retired Sudhakar Ji, who's an international relations and defense expert, joining us live from New Delhi. I extend you a very warm welcome here, sir, and thank you for joining us at NewsX World. Now, attacks continue to pound. Do you think this is a way of the sides to reject the so-called peace plan that's been drafted by Donald Trump?
No, not really. Firstly, good evening. Thank you for getting me for your show. And we, I think, discussed at length about the peace proposal yesterday, the pros and cons, and the likely options. So it is to be understood in the perspective that the 28-point peace proposal is basically a kind of a concept. And this concept has to be processed through different stages of validation, scrutiny, tweaking, modifications, etc., etc., because what is suitable to Russia may not be suitable and will not be will not be suitable to Ukraine. So while that may be appearing to be a different subject altogether, yet I tend to agree with what you are actually is hidden in your question. That is it linked with what is happening with the Poland? No, there is certainly some kind of a linkage in such kind of an ongoing conflict, which has gone beyond 3.5 now, going to be 4 years now, and which a legacy of trust deficit. It is bound to have an impact on a day-to-day diplomatic relationship between two countries, and more so if Poland has actually closed down its diplomatic the footprint in Russia. Well, Russia also, it is a reciprocal, at the international level, Kriti, you will agree with me, most of such kind of response matrix is generally fraught with reciprocity in the relationship. If one closes one footprint, the other also will close. The similar thing has happened. Plus, there is something which was given, it's coming in the open media about the rail link actually having been subverted or something like that. I didn't have time to go into the details. But the fact of the matter remains that yes, there are linkages which are not visible to the common man. How are the linkages coming to light is that nobody in Europe, if you recall, we had actually emphasized on this issue. None of the countries in Europe would like the peace process to go ahead in the manner the way it is going, because
Yeah.
the proposal has been mooted by none other than Russia itself. Thereafter, it is going to the stakeholders in Ukraine. Whereas the process of peace, if at all you want, they should actually follow a format which generally we are taught, or at least we have gone through in military. That is, wherever one is, just stop, freeze all activities.
Yeah.
First, stop, make sure that there is a ceasefire. Thereafter, get onto the table, talk. Thereafter, you work out the modalities. Now, the ceasefire is not taking place. The firing is going on. Drones are flying left, right, center. Diplomatic missions are closing. So this, hybrid kind of response matrix is on, which is highly detrimental. It will not take the peace proposal anywhere ahead.
Absolutely, and let's not also forget the statement that had come from Lavrov, who said that if the revised peace plan is not in accordance with the Alaska summit, Russia would take further action, and that's clearly happening. It continues to happen as Russia moves forward into the Ukrainian territory. If it was an agreement to the so-called peace plan that's being devised by Trump administration, why would it actually do so?
A great point. That's. I really appreciate that you are highlighting this point. You see, again, take your mind back to yesterday that we discussed. There are a couple of highlights, the central points of the peace, if at all it has to come into this mindless conflict in the Russia-Ukraine war. Then the first and foremost thing Russia wants is the neutrality or the neutral state of Ukraine. How can Ukraine assure neutrality? Where is the security guarantee? Now, when you talk about security guarantee, there are two terminologies: security assurance, security guarantee. Security assurance was given in '94. If you take your mind back, the Hungary's capital, Budapest Agreement, '94, 5th of December, if I respect my memory, is the nuclear warheads which are held in Ukraine had been handed over formally to Russia. And after having handed over, there are three countries, one is UK, one is USA, and the third is Russia. Three countries had given the assurance about the security, about the protection, about the insulating, I would say. That was a kind of assurance given, but there was no guarantee. The distinction between the two terminologies, one is legally binding, something like NATO Article 5. It is legally binding for all nations to come together if any other nation within the grouping of 32 is attacked at any point, any place in time. So similarly, in absence of a legal assurance, now what has happened, even after Russia, America and UK, plus there are two countries who had signed the agreement in parallel, China and France, way back in '94, nobody came forward to support or help Ukraine. Nobody, no boots on ground. Yes, material support was given to Ukraine by the Western alliances, but none of these countries. So the question arises, what happens to the security guarantee or the assurance to Ukraine? That is one. Number two is neutrality, which I have already highlighted. Third and most important point is that ceding of territory. In 21st century, do you say that in rules-based international order, will ceding of territory not compromise the very terminology of territorial integrity and sovereignty of a nation? It's a democracy. How can some country be like this if it is happening with Ukraine? These are the counter questions which will keep coming up, and it is going to be over the dead body of Ukraine and Zelensky. How is it going to be accepted? So these are the issues which are likely to crop up, and therefore, if one component is trying to push the peace proposal ahead, you will have multiple components trying to pull it back. So this seesaw kind of game will continue until some push ahead is given by Donald Trump, because he is the only man and his team who are very, very serious and sincere, to my mind, to my study and joining of dots. They want the actually peace process to commence as soon as possible. For that, I would recommend just one more minute, if you allow me, that first and foremost thing for any peace to take place is to bring about ceasefire. Stop wherever one is, no firing, freeze the action, freeze all activities. Thereafter, go on to pull back the troops by a couple of kilometers onto either side. That is 5 kilometers that side towards Ukraine, 5 kilometers to this side. Thereafter, sit on the table and discuss. Take both all the stakeholders into on board and take them into confidence. It shouldn't happen, as Zelensky is saying, Ukraine has not been consulted when the peace proposal is being made. Russia shouldn't say that they have not been consulted. So some kind of a via media has to be worked out. United Nations, I suggest, has to play a very important role. It's sitting like a sitting duck, like a lame duck, without totally defunct in its neutrality and the mandate which has been given to it in the international order.
Well, I do see your point. For now, thank you for joining us, Retired Major General Sudhakar Ji on NewsX World, viewers. And with that, let's move on to news from the United Kingdom. Now, British Finance Minister Rachel Reeves has announced a big tax-raising budget that will take more money from workers, people saving for a pension, and investors to give herself a greater room to meet her deficit reduction targets. Britain's fiscal watchdog cut its forecast for economic growth for the coming years, a setback for struggling Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who promised voters last year that he would speed up for the economy. Meanwhile, the Office for Budget Responsibility has said that the government will now have more than double than its previous buffer for meeting its fiscal targets, something which is closely watched by investors assessing Britain's borrowing risks. Peter Baum, who is the editor of the Weekly Blitz, is now joining us live from London. I welcome you, Peter, on NewsX World, and thank you for joining us here. Now, first of all, I would like you to address some of the big changes that have been, implemented by this budget, and how is the economy reacting to those changes?
Good day. Thank you for having me. I won't bore you or your viewers and listeners with the details of the budget. So let's just look at the generalisations. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has pleased nobody by this current round of tax disciplines. She has disincentivised growth and incentivised those people who are currently unemployed for whatever reason and have more than 2 children. If the United Kingdom were a share on any stock market, you would not be buying this particular share. It has no room for growth or upside potential, but has more than likely every possibility of declining in financial disadvantages. I've just been listening to, as you can imagine, on the UK television and media, the budget has literally taken over 100% of the news time since the Chancellor was in Parliament yesterday. And I would suggest to you that virtually 95% of people interviewed from all aspects of life are deeming this budget to be financially irresponsible and will have a negative impact on them. The most hardest hit people are those people who any country needs for growth, and that is the small businessman. Now, they were hit very badly last year with what we call national insurance rises, and they've been hit very hard this year with the amount of which one starts to pay tax and the increase in what we call the minimum wage. And I'll just give you one example, but this will be replicated up and down the country. They were interviewing the owner of a very good Indian restaurant near to me. He currently employs 7 people. His salary bill is going up because of the minimum wage is going up.
Right.
He will now have to, in order to keep his profit margins stable, have to decrease his staff by 1 full-time staff and 1 part-time staff. Now, those are 2 people that were in work, that will currently be, as from next month, out of work, who will have to go on the welfare system if they don't find jobs in the meantime. And that kind of story, the small businessman, the person who has a restaurant or a small shop or a very small business, is finding his costs go up. He is unable at this moment in time to pass them on to the consumer because inflation is already quite high.
Right.
And therefore, this is a disincentive for growth, but an incentive for people who are currently unemployed and have 2, as I said, 2 children or more, because their benefits are going up. And I'm afraid the country is going to suffer. It would be remarkable to me if this Chancellor survives another year in office to deliver a budget speech 1 year down the road.
All right, I do wish I could take some more questions with you, Peter, but that's all the time that I have for you. Thank you for joining us, viewers. Let's tell you that spending's gone up, growth forecast is down, and sterling has risen against the US dollar and the euro. With that, we now move on to news on the Ukraine and on Russia and Poland. Now, tensions between Russia and Poland have escalated once again. The Russian Foreign Ministry summoned Poland's ambassador, announcing that Moscow will revoke permission for Poland's last remaining consulate general in Irkutsk to operate. Now, the closure will take effect on 30th of December. Russian officials say the move is a direct response to Poland's recent decision to shut down the final Russian consulate on its territory, a step that Warsaw justified by citing alleged Russian involvement in the sabotage of a Polish railway line. Now, in a statement, the Russian Foreign Ministry condemned Poland's action as openly hostile and unjustified, warning that any further measures taken against Russian diplomatic presence will trigger reciprocal actions. Moving on, let's also tell you what Poland had to say. Now, Poland says that it has arrested a Russian citizen suspected of hacking into the IT systems of several Polish companies. Interior Minister Marcin announced that the detention, saying police in Krakow took the man into custody for what he described as a serious crime involving unauthorized interference in corporate systems. According to Kierwinski, the suspect breached security protections to gain access to company databases. Authorities have not disclosed what those databases contained or how the information may have been used. The Russian national has been placed in temporary arrest. The case comes as Poland and a number of other European nations increase vigilance for what they consider hostile actions linked to Russia. Meanwhile, Russia has consistently denied involvement in such activities. And I want to welcome back retired Major General Sudhakarji into the discussions here. So we now clearly are also seeing how Warsaw is pushing back against Russia once again. How do you see the developments shaping forward? Europe is clearly pushing back against um, not just Russia, but also the US peace plan?
Yeah, look, Kriti, these kind of pushback will take place. There will be a great degree of resistance, like we discussed yesterday, as also today in the previous panel theme that you had picked up. There is going to be the change management to anything which has been carrying on will go through a process of denial, resistance, then you have reconciliation, adoption, and finally acceptance. And particularly making peace in a country like Ukraine, which is already the conflict has been going on for 3.5 or more time, and there is a huge amount of trust deficit, and plus there are multiple stakeholders, but two primary stakeholders are one party or group of countries do not want the conflict to end, and another country or another group of people, they want a smaller group, tiny group, they want the peace to return and normalcy to be restored. So under these circumstances, I would say that Thucydide philosophy or Greek philosopher, when he said that the powerful will always have its say and the weak will continue as it must to suffer. So by no means am I trying to encourage or compromise the principles of sovereign territorial integrity and the sovereignty of a nation, but that's the only way forward. How do you bring a peace to a country where 20% of its land or territory has already been captured, it's occupied by the Russia, and also it has annexed Crimea, and also two little portions of Georgia likewise. So how do you bring about peace? The trust has to begin in some form. And in order to make it happen, I think the give and take has to take place. But that is going to be at a huge cost and price to be paid by Ukraine. This is the only way you can bring peace now, because any kind of scaling down of the aspiration or the demands projected by Russia will definitely create a dent, and also will damage the momentum which Trump is trying to build in making peace here in the Central Europe. So therefore, the question which you are asking, well, my take on the whole issue is it's going to be a time-consuming process, not in 24 hours, not even in 24 months. Maybe it will take more than that. Therefore, one has to make a sustained and consistent effort. It has to continue with the process of negotiation untiringly. Only then the peace may come in a befitting manner, which is acceptable to the
All right.
relevant stakeholders.
All right, I requested to stay on, sir. I have some more news in connection. Now, Romania's defense minister has said that it will buy French Mistral air defense systems worth more than $726 million, which is part of a joint procurement deal with several other European Union states. The ministry has also said that it signed a deal with French Defense Ministry for the purchase of the 231 Mistral man-portable air defense systems built by missile producer MBDA and 934 missiles alongside training, simulator and logistics. Now, Romania is a European Union and NATO member and shares about 650-kilometer land border with Ukraine and has had drone breaches in its airspace and fragments fall onto its territory, reportedly since Russia began attacking Kyiv's ports across the Danube. However, Romanian air defenses currently include F-16 fighter jets, Patriot systems, Lockheed Martin's HIMARS, rocket launchers, short-ranged South Korean surface-to-air Chiron missiles, and German anti-aircraft Gepard guns. Meanwhile, Romania also aims to partner with Ukraine to build drones under a new European Union defense funding mechanism. All right, let's have retired Major General Sudhakar ji back into the discussion. So do you think this is now going to, of course, we can expect Europe to be more protected against the Russian strikes, but is it going to have any deterrence effect on Russia?
Certainly, because we need to understand, our viewers will do good to correlate. The nearest example they can actually apply in the correlation is the Iron Dome of Israel. Although the Iron Dome of Israel is definitely many times far better than what you have just shared, F-16, or you are talking about some missile system, Patriot missiles, or XYZ from different countries have been put together. The biggest issue you have to understand, 625 or 35 kilometers that you said the border, it requires anything up to, for a small tiny country like Israel, they have got 10 batteries. 10 batteries of iron domes, like S-400. At the moment, India has got only 3. So with 3, it turned out to be a game changer during Operation Sindoor. And now we are going in for the contract which was signed in 2018. The balance of 2 have to be given to us at the earliest. There is a time delay of almost 1.5 to 2 years now. Thereafter, we are going in for 5 more. For a country of size of India, which has got a continental border of 15,500 kilometers, plus the coastline earlier used to be 7,500, now it is gone beyond 11,040 or 90 kilometers. So, and with the exclusive economic zone that we have, more than 2 million square kilometers, for a size of this kind, you require much more. So, for when you talk about Romania, with a border of 650, let's say 650 kilometers, compare it with Israel. Israel is a country which is of the size of 400 kilometers by 140 kilometers. 400 is north-south, and west to east is 140 kilometers. It has got a border with Lebanon. It has got a border with Gaza, with whom the battle is going on. And also it has got border with Jordan, and then you have other Syria, then Turkey, etc., etc. So therefore, to give protection to all these 10 defenses, 10 batteries are required. Each battery can cover a particular distance or range, and it is layered form. So therefore, it is going to work actually, and you have to understand, it is not that you sign the deal and it is everything comes and gets implemented. It is spread over 5 to 7 years. So during this period, not only the aerial platforms have to come into being, but also the process of integration is going to take place, which was the central point of the success story of Operation Sindoor as far as India was concerned. It was absolutely artificially intelligent integration taking place. Artificial intelligence is to select the target, oncoming target. It is to match with the weapon system we had, and it is to trigger, it is to give orders, directions that here it is, you go and hit. That is how India did not have any kind of damage or any kind of attrition on our side because of the oncoming missiles and the projectiles coming from Pakistan side.
Right, I do see your point, but I'm afraid I'll have to cut you short here. I'm running short on time, but thanks a lot for joining us here on NewsX World. And viewers, with that, it's a wrap on the NewsX Eurozone. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.